Hi friends, welcome to virtual learning. How are you friends? After a long gap, we are meeting. I hope you are fine. Friends, today we are going to learn our 4.2 section, that is fourth section 4.2, to serve with love. Let us learn about to serve with love. Here the introduction of writer. This novel is an autobiography. It is taken. So friends, let's learn about writer E.R. Braithwaite. Justus Edward Ricardo Braithwaite, that is E.R. Braithwaite, born in 1912 up to 2016, known as E.R. Braithwaite, was a Guyanese-born British-American novelist, writer, teacher, and diplomat. Best known for his stories of social conditions and racial discrimination against black people. His novel or his stories that based on racial discrimination against black people, means black versus white. You will find out here the contrast. He was the author of one of the famous 1959 autobiographical novel, To Serve with Love. Friends, To Serve with Love. Here is, I think that Hollywood movie, To Serve with Love. Watch that movie, To Serve with Love. He also wrote a kind of homecoming about his tour of Africa, A Choice of Straws, a novel set in London, and Reluctant Neighbors. These are the name of novels, Reluctant Neighbors. Then here a kind of homecoming about tour to Africa, A Choice of Star, and a novel set in London, means setting of his novel, The Choice of Star, that is in London. Then The Reluctant Neighbors, a memoir and treatise about racism. Braithwaite's humorous writings primarily deal with the difficulties of being an educated black man. Means what was the difficulty of Braithwaite? That was he was educated, he was an engineer, but he was black, and that's why in those period, means British people consider other people black and white. British consider themselves great, and so here we'll find out the clashes between black and white. Means racism was there, racial discrimination was there, and in that period, is- he wrote that novel about his experience, own experience also. Here, black man, he was educated black, a black social worker, a black teacher, and simply a human being who found himself in a set of inhumane circumstances. Simply, he was a black man, black social worker, black teacher, and simply a human being. And he found himself in a set of inhumane circumstances. He himself suffered this racial superiorism or racial discrimination by white people. Now, see here, To Serve with Love is an autobiographical novel. I told you the narrator is an engineer, but to make both ends meet, means to earn money or livelihood, he accepts the job of a teacher in a rough London East End school for his bread and butter. The school is full of troublemakers students, and that school was very full of troublemaker students. All students, they were very naughty, who were rejected from other school, and such category means school students rejected from other school, and all that rejected student, they have taken admission in that school. So you can say that very naughty students were there for their behavior. rejected or rusticated for their behavior. At the beginning, the narrator is ridiculed and bullied by the student. And at the beginning, he was a newcomer and he was a new person, and particularly black person, black man, teacher, black teacher, and that's why he was bullied by that student. Since earlier, just in the beginning. Actually, we know that he was not by profession. There were no professional qualification of writer as a teacher, and he was an engineer, but accepted that job of teaching. And now, at the beginning, is ridiculed by his student. You know that students were very horrible in that school, but later he is calm, Geminor, and desire to see them succeed gradually. And later on, his behavior, nature, student acquainted, and afterwards, student love his teacher, here Breathwaite. So earn him their respect, and in this way he earned respect. So respect God. So should not expect respect. We should earn that respect. Hence, let's see about this writer we have seen. Now about the novel. Today we only read summary, or we only study summary of this novel. Major characters here and minor characters. Major character Ricky Braithwaite, narrator. Gillian Blanchard, uh, female lady teacher, white teacher. Mrs. Del Evans, Denham, naughty boy. Amila, Dare, and Mr. Florian. These are the main characters in the novel. Now, minor characters Bob Belmont, Jacqueline Bender, Trinity, Selma Drew, Hackman, Moira Joseph, Palmer, Euphema Phillips, Jen Purcell, Lawrence Sills, Jess Belmont, Buckley, Josie Dawes, Patrick Furman, Hitch Jackson, Monica Peck, Ba- Barbara Peg, Potter, Sapiano, Theo Watson. These are the minor characters. Some school boys and girls are there. Major characters, some teachers, lady teachers, gent teachers. So let's go ahead. These are the characters. Now, summary of the novel. Today we only study about this summary. Let us see here. To Serve with Love is a work of fiction based on the life of the author, E.R. Braithwaite. Since I told you, it's the autobiographical novel, so life of author. The main character, E.R. Braithwaite. And you know, friends, means here, Sidney Poitier, Hollywood actor, played this role as a teacher. So you please watch that movie To Serve with Love. Hollywood movie will came to know how that movie is there and how is the teacher and how all students they harass, and afterwards how they love their teacher. So very beautiful or very good Hollywood movie is there. So you please watch that movie To Serve with Love. Now the main character E.R. Braithwaite works as an engineer in an oil refinery. He served in the Royal British Air Force. He also served in Royal British Air Force in the war. After the war, being a black person, means being a black, he was black. He was unable to find employment, means job. Unable to find employment means job. As a last resort, he applied in a school to become a teacher. His last effort, he applied in school to become a teacher. Surprisingly, he is accepted at the Greenslade School. Now that school accepted him as a teacher in London's East End. That was in East End, and is said to teach the senior classes of the school. And now he was appointed as a teacher in that London's East End, that is a Greenslade School, and appointed as a senior classes, upper class While reading the novel, we have to understand that the time period in which the story take place is very important. The story take place means school timing, certain period is there. We have to understand that period, that the time period in which the story take place is very important. Braithwaite finds that even though he consider himself British, though he was born in British Guiana, he born, he considered himself as a British, but he was black, particularly origin from Africa. So and has served in the Royal Air Force, that is RAF. The English do not consider him to be one of them, but English is British people do not consider him as white because he was black, one of them. So this leads Braithwaite to feel bitter about English and colonialism. Means that's why there is a something bitterness in his mind against British people or colonialism. Know that different countries there were rule of British. That is, the colonies were there and colonialism. So here he felt that it is bitter about the English and colonialism, as well as about his white student also in his mind. Means at the beginning. Let's go ahead. Now here, Braithwaite's teaching position starts out roughly and is embraced time and gain. His position, teaching position that start roughly and he embraced time and gain. A lot of efforts he had done and he gained that teaching ability. He considered his student disrespectful before, means starting or in beginning, all that students they were rejected from other school, and that's why disrespectful student, ill mannered and mischievous students, means he consider they are all disrespectful, ill mannered and mischievous, while his students consider him to be an arrogant outsider. And that student they also consider about that teacher, about this teacher, arrogant teacher and outsider, not the native. Here, unfamiliar with the social environment in which they have grown up, is that students grown up, and this teacher didn't know about the environment or the social environment of that students. The students harass him from day one, means from the first, slamming their desk during his lecture. Means how they harass, slamming, just blowing their desk during the first day, means from the first lecture, yes, during his lecture, using foul language or the dirty language, foul language they use, and bullying him to a great extent. Bullying him, it's very great harassment, great extent. Even the girl students do not spare a moment to harass Braithwaite. Even not only boys but also girls also, they also spare not time harass Braithwaite. They were also ahead. Now you know that in our class also some boys, some girls, they just harass us. We also uh, sometimes become temper, means we lose our temper, or sometimes we burst in anger, or we anger. We just uh, consider that. And here means harassment was there at starting or the beginning. It happens, and later on when we familiar with each other, when you student came to know that this sir, this student, this sir, this madam is very good, so our teacher is a good person, and later on they control. So this is the thing. So here the same thing happened with Braithwaite. Harassment in a reaction to that, Braithwaite's verbally scold the girls for acting in an unladylike manner, and he scolded on that girl students also because they acted unlady. A lady, a girl should behave like girl, so unlady manner, and being unruly in the, because girls were also unruly in the class, in Braithwaite's class, at the beginning. Then later on, what happened? Let's see here. When he understand that his outburst has not gained him any respect, because he so many times he scolded that student, but that was in vain. So he understand that it was in vain, and then he changed his method of teaching, and cooperation from the student means any respect and cooperation from the student means students were not cooperating him, always disturbing the class, always making means noise in class. He changes his teaching and handling tactics, and decides means he changes his teaching and handling tactic means how to handle such naughty student. And sometimes we also have to follow some rules and regulations. Sometimes we have to handle naughty students, and we know that we have that type of experience, though you are not in class. But when you will come at that time class, at that time you will come to know that means how students are and how teachers are. So let's go ahead to interact with them as though they are adults and disrespectable person. And sorry, means now he decided to interact students adult and respectable person. Adult and respectable, adult and respectable means he gave respect. He considered that students adult, but that student didn't consider adult, and they behave like a naughty student, little one. So he requires every girl to be referred to as Miss, and that his students call him Sir. Is the expectation told when something that happened. So one of the student or in the class, some burning stove or some burning instrument, they started in the class. At that time, he was very much curious about their behavior. That time, he ordered all boys go outside, and only girls were there. And at that time, he scolded on that girl, and he told that girls that you are a girls and you are respectful, and you should be called as Miss. And that time, he just ordered that girls not to behave means unladylike. So that from that time, respect given to means girls as Miss, boys as a Mister, and to him as a Sir. Means this is the rules and regulation of Braithwaite. At first, the students find this level of difference ridiculous and unnecessary. Means at first, students find it is ridiculous, unnecessary, not good. However, they come around after only a few weeks, and after only few weeks, they came to know completely changing both their hygiene and their attitudes towards one another. And after few weeks, Braithwaite changed the habit of students. Braithwaite changed completely both their hygiene and their attitudes towards one another. Before, they were very rude. Students were very rude, but after few weeks, after that, all students become means behaving properly because of Braithwaite. This marks the success of Braithwaite, and this is the success of Braithwaite in handling the student in a very amicable way. Means he handled that student in a very amicable, means very easily or very softly or something, and he handled that student. Even other teachers, they were suffering from these students. These students, they harassed every teacher. But here, Braithwaite becomes successful to handle them, and he taught them discipline, he taught them hygiene, he taught them everything, etiquettes, manners, everything. To increase the class cultural exposure, means cultural exposure, so that students should be aware of culture or something. He takes them on field trips. He organizes field trips and excursion, and to museum and theaters. To everyone's surprise, many of the students have never been. They were not outside, not gone outside. And when they saw these things, that is a museum, theaters, or something that good sports, cultural programs, and all students behave very properly. Never been a white female teacher. Now there were a white female teacher with staff member of Breathwaite, that is Gillian Blanchard, accompanies the class on this excursion. This marks the beginning of the friendship between Blanchard and Braithwaite. And this is the starting of friendship of white teacher and black teacher. Now, it is not a friendship between Braithwaite and Blanchard, but it is a friendship of white teacher and black teacher. In those days, this racial superiorism was there, racial discrimination was there. White people consider means they just hated black people. Now it is a friendship of this lady teacher and this Braithwaite. Similarly, Braithwaite's relationship with his student is tested many a times. Braithwaite's relationship also tested many times. Other teachers they tested relation, how he is behaving with white students, how Braithwaite is dealing with white students. Other teacher also tested. Although his students frequently disappoint and hurt him, but his student frequently disappoint and hurt him because we know that he was black teacher and students all students were white students, and he became he learns to forgive them. He learns to forgive them. The student constantly surprise him with their maturity, and students surprise him with their maturity, empathy, and knowledge. So here, this type of relationship between student and teacher. Another facet of the story, another side of the story, which greatly affects his narrative lies, is the heavy history of colonialism. Yes, here it is the heavy history of colonialism. Another side of the story. It's a dark consequences, and this is the dark consequences, mental and physical trauma, even mental and physical trauma that in that novel that increases Braithwaite's hatred and wrath for British. It's all white teachers also not behaving properly to with Braithwaite, and all white students also harass Braithwaite, consider him as an outsider, and Braithwaite's hatred and wrath for British means he also express his hatred and wrath for British. He constantly feels the prejudicial effects of colonialism while living in England after World War II. Means he was living in England after World War II, and these negative experiences frequently shape his thoughts, and these negative experiences also shape his thought and actions. Braithwaite is surprised and shocked by the conditions in which these students live. And when he came to know that how students they are living, he's surprised and shocked. And also the physical trauma, he received that physical trauma of the war. Means he served in British army also. That's why physical trauma of a war that can be seen throughout his teaching environment, and that can be seen throughout his teaching environment. And he created such an environment. Later on, all students came to know his discipline. All students came to know nature. He was very good teacher, and all students finally accepted him as a teacher. Friends, we have seen here the summary of this novel. Thank you.